The heavy wooden doors of the mansion slammed shut behind her, but the echoes of that scream lingered in every corner of the house. Inside, chaos reigned. A little boy, no older than 5, sat in the middle of his room surrounded by shattered toys. His tiny fists pounded the carpet as he screamed, "I don't want anyone. I don't want them." Downstairs, his father, Adrian Cortez, a man known across the city for his wealth and power, stood frozen in the grand hallway. He had just witnessed the 15th caretaker leave in less than a year. 15 women, all walking away in tears, defeated by a child no one seemed able to understand. Adrian loosened his tie, his face pale with exhaustion. "How long can this go on?" he whispered under his breath. His wife, Isabella, appeared at the top of the staircase, her hair disheveled, her eyes swollen from crying. "We're running out of options, Adrian. That was the last agency. No one wants to deal with him anymore." Before Adrian could respond, another crash thundered from upstairs. A vase had been hurled against the wall. Isabella flinched. "Do you hear that? He hasn't slept properly in weeks. He won't eat. He won't listen. Adrian, he's breaking." Adrian clenched his jaw and rushed up the stairs. He opened the door to his son's room cautiously, half expecting something to fly at his face. The boy, Ethan, sat trembling on the floor, his small body shaking with rage and fear. His eyes were wild, but beneath them was a pain no child his age should carry. "Ethan," Adrian called softly, kneeling down, "It's me, Dad." But the boy only shook his head violently. "No, you'll leave too. Everyone leaves." Adrian froze at those words. They cut through him sharper than any knife. Everyone leaves. He tried to reach for his son, but Ethan scurried under the bed, curling up into a trembling ball. Isabella appeared at the doorway, her voice breaking. "Do you see now? He's slipping away from us. If this doesn't stop, we might lose him forever." The weight of her words hung in the air like a curse. Adrian pressed his hand against the carpet, fighting back his own tears. He was a man who could control empires, who could silence boardrooms with a single glance. But here, with his own child, he was powerless. And just as despair seemed to swallow the family whole, the doorbell rang. Neither of them moved at first. It was dawn, too early for visitors. But that sound carried with it something strange, almost like a promise. Isabella wiped her face quickly and rushed downstairs, opening the door with hesitation. There, standing in the pale morning light, was a young woman with nothing more than a worn-out backpack and a cleaning bucket in her hands. "Good morning," she said softly, her eyes steady despite the weight she seemed to carry. "You asked for help." The woman stepped inside, her footsteps light against the marble floor. Isabella studied her with a mix of relief and suspicion. She looked too young, too fragile for a house that had already broken so many others. "What's your name?" Isabella asked, folding her arms. "Clara," she answered, adjusting the strap of her backpack. "Clara Mendez." Her voice carried a calmness that fell out of place in this storm of a home. Isabella hesitated, then motioned toward the stairs. "The boy is upstairs. But I warn you, he doesn't accept anyone. He screams, he throws things, he makes people leave." Clara didn't flinch. "May I try?" For a moment, Isabella almost laughed. Try? As if her son were some puzzle waiting to be solved. But the quiet certainty in Clara's eyes stopped her. It wasn't arrogance. It was something deeper, like she already knew pain and wouldn't run from it. Together, they climbed the stairs. Adrian stood at the doorway of Ethan's room, his shirt sleeves rolled up, sweat dampening his temples. He turned when he heard them. "Another one," he muttered bitterly. "He'll chase her out in an hour." Clara met his gaze, but didn't respond. Instead, she gently set her bucket down in the hallway and stepped into the room. Ethan was perched on his bed, clutching a stuffed toy with one arm while the other hurled blocks across the room. His face was red, his little chest rising and falling in frantic bursts. When his eyes landed on Clara, he froze. For the first time that morning, the room fell silent. Clara took a slow step closer, her movements deliberate, almost careful enough not to scare a wild animal. "Hi, Ethan," she said softly, kneeling so she was at his level. "I'm Clara." The boy's grip on his toy tightened, his lip trembling. But he didn't scream. He didn't throw. He just stared. Adrian and Isabella exchanged a stunned glance from the doorway. This was impossible. No one had ever managed to quiet him so quickly. Clara smiled gently, though her eyes glistened with an emotion even she didn't fully understand. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to meet you." Ethan tilted his head, his small brow furrowed. He slid off the bed slowly, his bare feet padding across the rug. He stopped right in front of her, so close that Clara could feel his shaky breath. Then, without a word, he reached out and touched her sleeve. Adrian's mouth fell open. Isabella's hand shot to her chest. Clara lowered herself further until her knees pressed into the carpet. She looked into Ethan's tear-filled eyes, and for a moment, the world around them disappeared. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe." Ethan blinked, then collapsed against her chest, burying his face into her shoulder. Clara wrapped her arms around him instinctively, her heart pounding as if it had been waiting for this very moment. Adrian stepped forward. How did you do that?" Clara looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes, children don't need rules. They just need someone who won't walk away." The silence that followed was thick, broken only by Ethan's soft, tired sobs fading into hiccups. Isabella leaned against the doorframe, tears streaming down her face. She had begged for peace, and here it was, delivered by a stranger. But as Clara held the boy, a flicker of unease passed across her features. She hadn't expected this connection, this instant bond. It was as if Ethan had been waiting for her, and deep down, she feared she already knew why. The days that followed felt like a miracle. For the first time in months, Ethan laughed, really laughed. He drew pictures at the kitchen table, asked questions about the world, and even slept through the night. But one thing never changed. He wanted Clara near him at all times. If she stepped out of the room, he would call for her. If Isabella tried to feed him, he pushed the plate away until Clara sat beside him. And if Adrian attempted to calm one of Ethan's storms, the boy would cry for Clara instead. At first, Isabella was relieved. Relief turned to gratitude. But slowly, gratitude twisted into something else, fear. One evening, as the golden light of sunset spilled across the living room, Adrian walked in to find Clara humming softly while Ethan dozed against her lap. The tune was simple, almost childlike, but it carried an aching familiarity. Adrian paused, frowning. "That song," he murmured. Clara's humming stopped abruptly. "What about it?" "I've heard it before," Adrian said, rubbing the back of his neck. "My mother used to sing it to me when I was a boy. But how do you know it?" Clara's hand tightened around the edge of the sofa. I don't remember where I learned it. It's just always been with me." Her words were careful, but inside, her chest burned. She remembered exactly where it came from, the lullabies she used to sing in a cold hospital room years ago, to a baby she was told never survived. Ethan stirred, blinking up at her with sleepy eyes. "Sing again," he whispered. Clara smiled, though her heart trembled. She began humming once more, and Ethan's face softened into peace. Adrian watched, unsettled. He couldn't explain it, but there was something uncanny about the way his son clung to this woman as though she had always belonged to him. Later that night, when Clara returned to her small apartment, she collapsed onto her bed. The memories came rushing back, the sterile white walls, the beeping machines, the crushing words of the doctor. "I'm sorry. The baby didn't make it." But had that been the truth? Clara covered her face with her hands. The dates, the age, the way Ethan had looked into her eyes the first day, as though he already knew her. It was too much to ignore. "No," she whispered into the dark. "It can't be." Yet every part of her screamed otherwise. Meanwhile, in the Cortez mansion, Isabella stood at the window, watching Clara play with Ethan in the garden the next morning. Laughter drifted through the glass, a sound that should have warmed her heart, but instead froze it. "Adrian," she said as her husband joined her, "something isn't right." He sighed. "Not this again." "You see it too," Isabella pressed, her voice trembling. "The way Ethan looks at her. It's not normal. He acts like she's his mother." Adrian turned sharply. Don't be ridiculous. Am I? Isabella's eyes glistened. She walks in here with nothing. And suddenly, he's healed? He clings to her, sings with her, draws her in his pictures. Adrian, you can't tell me you don't feel it, that there's more to her than she says. Adrian looked out at Clara again, unease creeping into his chest. Even if you're right, what are you suggesting? That she's lying to us. I'm suggesting, Isabella whispered, that Clara Mendez isn't who she claims to be. Her words hung in the air like a shadow neither of them could escape. That night, as Clara tucked Ethan into bed, he reached out and took her hand. His tiny fingers squeezed hers, his voice fragile but certain. You won't leave me, will you? He asked. Clara's throat tightened. Never. Ethan smiled faintly. Good, because I dreamed about you before you came. I dreamed you were singing to me, just like now. Clara froze. Tears stung her eyes as her heart raced. How could he dream of something he should never remember? Unless. She kissed his forehead gently and whispered, Sleep well, my love. But as she stepped out of the room, she knew one thing with certainty. The truth about Ethan's past was closer than ever, and once it surfaced, nothing in this house would ever be the same. Days turned into weeks, and Clara's presence in the mansion became as natural as the ticking of the grand clock in the hallway. Ethan was calmer, happier, but the shift in the household wasn't without its cracks. Isabella couldn't shake the growing storm inside her. At night, while Adrian slept, she scrolled endlessly through her phone, searching Clara's name, checking records, trying to piece together a past that seemed too thin, too conveniently vague. Every lead ended in shadows. Clara Mendez might as well have appeared out of thin air. One afternoon, as Clara organized books in Adrian's office, her eyes fell on a folder left half open on the desk. Inside, she glimpsed Ethan's birth certificate. Her breath caught. March 14th, the exact date her baby had been taken from her arms in that hospital room. Her hands shook as she read the words again and again, the room spinning around her. It can't be, she whispered. Clara. She snapped the folder shut, spinning around. Adrian stood at the doorway, his brow furrowed. What are you doing? Just cleaning, she said quickly, forcing a smile. But Adrian wasn't convinced. His gaze lingered on her trembling hands, the faint panic in her eyes. Something was wrong. That evening, Isabella confronted him in their bedroom. You see it too, don't you? The way she looks at him, the way he looks at her. Adrian rubbed his temples. You're imagining things. No, Adrian, I'm not. That woman isn't here just to clean. She wants something from us. From Ethan. Enough. Adrian snapped, his voice sharper than he intended. Ethan is finally happy. Do you want to ruin that? Isabella's lips trembled. What if she's not who she says she is? What if she's dangerous? Adrian turned away, but her words gnawed at him. Dangerous. The thought wouldn't leave his mind. The next day, Isabella took matters into her own hands. She met a private investigator in a quiet cafe far from the mansion. A heavy-set man with tired eyes slid into the booth across from her. You're certain you want this? He asked. I need everything about Clara Mendez. Where she's from. Who she is. Leave no stone unturned. He nodded, scribbling in his notebook. It'll cost you. Money isn't a problem, Isabella whispered. But speed is. I need answers fast. Back at the mansion, Clara tucked Ethan into bed. He clung to her hand, his eyes wide and serious. You're not going to leave me, right? He whispered. Clara's throat tightened. No, Ethan, never. He studied her face for a moment, then said something that made her blood run cold. I had a dream about when I was a baby. I heard your voice. You were singing. The same song you sing to me now. Clara's heart pounded. She stroked his hair, fighting back tears. Dreams are funny, aren't they? She said softly. But deep down, she knew this was no coincidence. Later that night, Clara sat alone at her small kitchen table in her apartment. She laid out the fragments of her past, hospital records, faded papers, scraps of memory. All pointed to one terrifying possibility. Ethan was her son. The child she was told had died. She buried her face in her hands. If it's true, what do I do? Do I take him? Do I tell them? The next morning, she arrived at the mansion earlier than usual, only to find Isabella waiting in the foyer. Arms crossed, eyes sharp as glass. "You're early," Isabella said, her smile thin. Clara forced a nod. "I thought I'd get a head start." "On what?" Isabella stepped closer. "Cleaning, or something else?" Clara stiffened. "I don't understand." Isabella's gaze pierced her. "Don't play games with me. I see the way Ethan clings to you. I see the way you look at him. You think I don't know? You think I won't find out who you really are?" The silence stretched, suffocating. Clara's pulse hammered in her ears. "I'm here for Ethan," Clara said finally, her voice steady. "Because he needs me." "No," Isabella hissed, her eyes blazing. "Because you need him. But he is my son, and I will destroy anyone who tries to take him away." Clara's breath caught. For the first time, she saw the full extent of Isabella's fear and her fury. This was no longer about a job, or even about healing Ethan. This was about the truth, a truth powerful enough to tear their world apart. The tension inside the mansion reached its breaking point. Isabella's eyes followed Clara everywhere, her suspicion sharp as a knife. Adrian tried to keep the peace, but the cracks were widening. And Ethan, sweet Ethan, felt it all, even if no one admitted it. One evening, Adrian returned home to find Clara sitting on the floor of Ethan's room, the boy curled in her lap, clutching a drawing. Adrian bent down, studying the picture, 3 stick figures holding hands. One labeled Dad, one labeled Ethan, and one, carefully written in shaky letters, Mom. Adrian's chest tightened. He looked at Clara, who was wiping tears from her eyes. "He sees you as his mother," Adrian whispered. Clara swallowed hard, unable to speak, because deep inside, she feared it was the truth. The following week, Isabella received the investigator's report. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Clara Mendez, age 23, lost a baby at 19 in a public hospital. Official record, child deceased. But the details were blurry, incomplete. And the dates? They aligned too perfectly with Ethan's birth. Her heart pounded. She slammed the folder shut, whispering to herself, "No, it's impossible." But deep down she knew. That night, Isabella confronted Clara in the kitchen, her voice sharp with desperation. "Who are you? Really? Why is my son so connected to you?" Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Because maybe he isn't just your son." The words hung in the air like thunder. Adrian entered just in time to hear them. His face went pale. "What are you saying?" Clara took a trembling breath. "I was told my baby died 4 years ago. But the dates, the connection, the way Ethan knows me. What if it was a lie? What if he's mine?" The silence was unbearable. Isabella shook her head violently. "No, he's ours. He's mine." Adrian stood frozen, torn between the woman he built his life with and the stranger who suddenly felt like family. And Ethan, standing in the doorway with wide eyes, whispered the only words that mattered. "Don't fight, please. I saw my mom and Dad." His little voice broke them all. Tears streamed down Clara's cheeks. She knelt and pulled Ethan close. "I'll never leave you," she whispered. Adrian's eyes softened, but Isabella's heart shattered. The truth was coming. DNA, courts, lawyers, none of it could be stopped now. Their lives were about to change forever. And yet, in that fragile moment, only one thing mattered. The boy caught between 2 worlds, longing only for love.